who's based out of Singapore. Hasn't always been there though. He is an ex-Australian hailing from Victoria, and has been working in the golf course industry for more than 30 years around golf courses, prior superintendent, a lot of experience around Asia Pacific, and joined the RNA last year, as I mentioned, as the head of sustainability. So Chris has agreed to join us today to talk about a couple of initiatives that the RNA have rolled out over the course of the last couple of years. And some of those initiatives are starting to take place in Australia with a great deal of work and emphasis over the next 12 months. And I won't steal too much of his thunder to talk about what they are, but please join me in welcoming Chris Gray from the RNA.
Hi, thanks, Mark. Appreciate everyone joining today. Looking forward to the topic of sustainability and Geo OnCourse sustainability initiatives coming up in Australia. I've got some slides that I'll share through, and then we can have any questions towards the end. But yeah, appreciate everyone taking the interest, because it is pretty exciting times what's going on. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. So as Mark mentioned, I'm with the RNA based up here in Singapore as the head of sustainability and agronomy for Asia Pacific. So I'll be working closely with the team down there in Australia. We've also got some similar initiatives happening in New Zealand. So it's great to see the advancement we have there. Hang on. Just a little bit about myself to start with. As mentioned, you know, I'm originally from Victoria. I see Brett Bellix there on the call. I worked with Brett down at Victoria Golf Club way back in the day. And I took part in the Ohio State University golf course turf management program way back in the late 80s. I think that's when a lot of farmers used to go across on the program as well. But and I know a lot of guys, you know, over the past 20 years have done this program, and it was very eye-opening to me at the time, especially, you know, to go and see some of the great US golf courses and how they operate over there. So you know, really good program, and opens your eyes, especially before the internet, when you couldn't find a lot of information that was going on. And had the opportunity to come up and work in Asia in the early 90s as a superintendent. So, you know, worked on some great golf courses such as Nawana Bali there in Indonesia. Worked in some interesting climates, did quite a bit of work up in China. You know, obviously with the weather conditions that can be quite variable up there, was very interesting as well. And of course, working on some professional tournaments, HSBC Champions and Volvo China Open for a number of years. So, you know, it was very exciting. I guess some of the other things that's been interesting, and I know a lot of people have been up around Vietnam and talk about Vietnam. You know, there's some fantastic sites. This was one of the sites that I had worked on in the 2000s in the Da Nang area. You know, it looks beautiful for golf, but underneath there can be some hidden hazards. So this was, you know, just buried under the ground throughout the golf course, all sorts of landmines, anti-tank mines. So you've got to be careful what's under the ground up in some parts around Vietnam. So, but very enjoyable golf and a lot of activity. What's happening up in that realm? Quite a few Australians working up that way as well. So today I'll be talking a little bit about the RNA. Obviously, everyone knows, you know, the RNA stages the Open Championship every year, but the RNA is also a lot more about what we do in golf. The association with the golf club, the Royal St Andrews, Royal Ancient Golf Club at St Andrews, and governance of the game through the rules, and of course the Open Championship. You know, and then just an overview on looking at the world of golf that the RNA is involved with. I've got a couple of colleagues from Singapore RNA office here on the call, Dominic Wall, who's the director for Asia Pacific, Jin Wu, who looks after rules in the region, and Nick Shen, also dealing with some of the championships that are held out this part of the world. But you can see we've got, you know, several areas that the RNA focuses on with governance and the championships, as well as amateur golf, development of golf, and sustainability, which is my part of this part of the world. So quite interesting and exciting to see what's happening on the sustainability front. So just the overarching thing about the RNA is essentially making golf more accessible, more inclusive and appealing in the next 50 years. You know, the RNA is a vision, you know, to lead by example in the golf world, you know, and again, the overriding theme there to make sure golf is thriving in 50 years' time. And the way we operate is to lead the future of the sport in a collaborative way, you know, hence working with golf associations and affiliates around the world, as we are with Golf Australia and the Australian Sports Turf Managers Association. So today I'll be talking about, again, my part of the RNA, which is sustainability. And we have several things that are on our agenda, with setting the standards for sustainability, which is actually supporting and working closely with the Geo Foundation and their OnCourse program throughout the world. Golf Course 2030, which we'll talk a bit about, which is putting together a roadmap towards Golf Course 2030 in line with the UN initiatives on that, but also the staging of sustainable championships. So working with organisers and golf clubs of championships for the sustainable staging of tournaments. So there's a lot going on with sustainability. And the way we, at the RNA, we talk about sustainability, we put it under three headings, because you can ask somebody what sustainability means and it can mean something different to everyone. But the way we've clarified it is nature, community and resources. So looking at the nature around where your golf course is, the community around where your golf course is, because you can benefit the people, whether it be in jobs or local community for support, but also for access to an open air golf facility, and the resources that come down to a golf facility as well. So that's the broad way that we look at sustainability in golf. So some of the other things that we do, which is very important for the game, is greenkeeping support. Because of course, without golf courses, there's no golf. So one of the things that we're doing is supporting greenkeeper education for the future. And I believe we also, with the RNA Greenkeeping Scholarship Program, this was established in 2004 to support students to further their education. And currently working with the Australian Sports Turf Managers Association, partnering with Melbourne Polytechnic, so providing a pilot scholarship program in 2020. So it's great that we can actually be involved. Traditionally, this was more in the UK region, so it's great that we can be involved with the scholarship program in Australia as well. So we really appreciate the support with the Sports Turf Managers Association. So what the scholarship does, provides financial assistance towards continuing education, but also not just that, we also have this tournament experience and also networking opportunities that are available. You know, ideally, once we can travel again, we'd like to look at some opportunities, you know, even if it's up here in Asia for the Singapore Open, to have some people involved. The Open Championship, of course, is a fantastic one to be involved with. So there's some fantastic opportunities around that scholarship program. So Golf Course 2030, I'll touch on here just to give you an overview and a bit of a background on what Golf Course 2030 is. So it was established in 2018 as an initiative to consider the impacts, positive and negative, changing climate, resources, constraints and regulation on golf course conditioning and playability, how it affects that. So some of the outcomes we've been looking at and is with the, to address the purpose, again, one of the things is to ensure golf is thriving 50 years from now. So I'll talk a little bit more about where we've done some of the programs after this, but just to give you an overview on the Golf Course 2030 Australia program, it's going to be one of the largest whole of golf projects in Australia for many years. So the key stakeholders are Golf Australia and the Australian Sports Turf Managers Association. Of course, this can't be done without the collaboration with the associated industry stakeholders, PGA of Australia, ladies, professional golf, as you can see all the way through. Local associations are involved with this at a state level, and then of course engaging the departments, government departments throughout the national and state level, as well as Sport Australia. So with all these people involved, it's possible to really drill down and see where golf is and what the outcomes can be from that. So the plan will be, so of course, bringing everyone together, but some of the things to go through, and it'll take a little time, is obviously agreeing on what the priority issues are. Now in Australia, it's, you know, it's obviously a very big country, so there's different issues for different areas. Of course, water is an issue right across Australia, but there's also other issues with whether aggregate supply, supply of reasonable sand for top dressing, either it's too expensive or not available. So there's a lot of issues around just obtaining what we need, but we need to look at certain things. Obviously, with climate, resource constraints, and regulation also form part of this. Now, regulation can actually change within a week or a month and drastically affect the way you maintain your golf course. So the plan to address the challenges that we're faced, working through this, and then the outcomes from that, you know, with industry support, we can conduct research, provide guidance, education, opportunities, and practical solutions from that. So some of the basically the three key areas that we look at in the Golf Course 2030 program is climate, resources, and regulation. Obviously, the climate change, you know, is a factor that we need to look at, and also where, you know, with the golf courses located on the coastlines, this is a big problem for coastal golf courses, and that's the GB&I program has a lot of focus on coastal environments and what can be done to save golf courses in these locations and to mitigate some of these challenges we face with that. Resources, obviously water, pesticides, fertilizer, sand, energy, labor, they're all factors with that. But again, one of the top of that list in Australia would definitely focus around water availability and regulation. You know, of course, so as it's related to pesticide reduction by governments around the world, this has an impact on course conditioning, playability, and also costs to maintain the golf course. So there's a lot to be done around those areas and a lot to be looked at in those areas on the golf courses. So the Golf Course 2030 program ties back into the UN 2030 agenda. As we can see, there's 17 initiatives or goals listed out from the UN. I won't go through all those ones, but what I'll tell you is how Golf Course 2030 actually touches on a majority of those UN goals, as we can see: clean water, affordable clean energy, industry innovation, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, and partnership for the goals. So the Golf Course 2030 program does touch on a majority of the United Nations sustainability goals. So that's part of the core of the Golf Course 2030 plan. And of course, a big part is national government engagement, which will need to take place in Australia as well. So to date, Golf Course 2030 documents have been completed in Great Britain and Ireland, Scandinavia, Spain, and Singapore was the most recent plan completed. So from the plan, just to give you an idea, out of Singapore, we've been able to work with Sentosa Golf Club here in Singapore on a sustainability initiative around what they do with their horticultural waste, but also their food and beverage waste. So we'll be working with them on a program around waste recycling and actually turning that waste into a fertilizer product that then can be used out on the golf course or landscape areas. So this is quite an interesting initiative taking place here in Singapore at the moment. Just to give you an idea on what happened in Great Britain and Ireland over their plan. So over the next 3 years, they're going to be working on some outcomes related to alternatives for chemical plant protection. Labour's an issue, what they can be done with that, but also about retention, education for the superintendents and greenkeepers. And sand and aggregate availability is a big problem in a lot of parts of the UK as well. Water, although it may seem like it rains all the time in the UK, they go through periods of drought, and a lot of the golf courses don't have adequate water supply at their golf courses. Quite a lot of golf courses don't have adequate irrigation systems. Coastal change and the impact on golf courses is another major factor there as well. So as we can see here, I mean, just the coastal change on the old links courses, there's a lot to be done around that. So I'll just talk about a couple of those projects that are happening over there. So the RANA has awarded funding to address the aims of some of the challenges, and there's 13 projects on the ground at the moment in Great Britain and Ireland that are focusing on some of these challenges. One of the initiatives undertaken by the STI in the UK is around are and how to communicate those standards, and actually having possibly a standards document in place. So it's much easier to explain where you're at and what you're doing with that. And also equality standards beyond the greens for golf courses as well. This is the University Centre at Myerscough carrying out this. Then we've got another one, what we consider on the resources banner. And this is talking about the greenkeeper course manager profile in the region. Some of the outcomes on this will be about further education, also about how to raise the profile for course managers and greenkeepers in the golf industry as a whole. Grass selection obviously is a major issue around the world. You know, I know in Asia I've seen places where bent grass has been grown where it probably shouldn't be grown, and the results can be a spectacular failure. So it's important to choose the right grass for the right climate. So this program is also being delivered by STRI, so working around some of those challenges around grass selection. I also know especially in the UK, you know, the move back towards the fescues and what have you, to get more of a running game of golf back rather than the meadow grass and poa annua that thrives in a lot of locations. So there's a big push towards going back on that regard to the more hardy grasses. Water management obviously is a factor. So there'll be projects on water management and resources around water, integrated turf management for greens, you know, what's for parkland golf courses as well. Coastal change, as mentioned, so there'll be a link survey carried out during this year, understanding where the vulnerabilities are on the coastlines in the UK, Scotland, and also what can be done with that. Obviously, you know, the costs are enormous for stabilising coastlines, so there'll be a lot of work done around this subject. And then just continuing with that coastal management study on the role that the golfing plays in the community. So again, raising the awareness of a golf course in the local environment, what that can be done for the community. And it's important we all understand we're in the industry, but for the local community, we have to make them understand how important a local golf course is in the ecosystem. So that was Golf Course 2030. now I'll just talk a bit about the Geo OnCourse program. I'm sure some of you are aware of the program, and I think they've done it over the past, 5 to 10 years. They've really streamlined the OnCourse platform and how it can be used more on a daily basis and a lot more relevant to what you're doing, whether it just be for record keeping and getting the news out about what you're doing on sustainability. So I'll just go through this. So Geo is a sustainability partner of the RANA, along with their OnCourse program and the Geo Certified. So obviously the RANA is a strong advocate for individual golf facilities to be more proactive in their region, but it's important to be backed up by evidence of progress results. And we can all talk about internally what we do, and our colleagues know what we do, but the challenge is to get that message around your golf course, local government. So it is important to have evidence of the progress and the results of what we're doing. Again, we believe this is important for long-term strength and viability of the sport at all levels. So our reputation and image in some quarters isn't that great on the sustainability front. So the more we can do to get the word out, actually how sustainable and how good golf can be for the local communities. So the OnCourse program, so it's an online application, and one of the objectives with the pilot program is to streamline that dashboard specifically towards Australian conditions and what you need as managers of golf courses in Australia. So some of the things you can do with the OnCourse program, you can review and evaluate your performance. There's a lot of information on there to gain ideas of what other courses are doing as well. But some of the key things that we need to obviously track data and trends, but the outcomes from that, you can, with your promoting your highlights on what you're doing around the nature, resources and community, and then once you've got all that information together, you can become Geo Certified, which is again something you can use with your club, but also as an individual to promote what you're doing in the game. So OnCourse Australia, in conjunction with Golf Australia, Geo Foundation and RNA, are launching this project to a range of golf courses. So with, again, as I mentioned, to be able to review and tailor the OnCourse platform to the Australian environment. So it needs to be worthwhile to you to be able to use it and have the value on the program. So with this feedback on this pilot program, I'll be able to launch around the rest of Australia with something that's going to be very valuable to every golf course. So again, that's just going to be based on the feedback out of this pilot program. So the clubs that do take part in the pilot program, the information from those key people involved, and that's going to be invaluable to shape how the OnCourse platform is going to move forward in Australia. So I'll just run through a few things about Geo, about the OnCourse program. Obviously, there's the main goals are, strengthen golf's environmental contribution, enhance golf's image, reputation, engage the audience out there, but maybe not just engage, but also inspire. So there's a lot of challenges around golf and the perception in the industry, but what we'll be working towards fostering nature, conserving resources, supporting communities, assisting in climate action. So the why, there's a lot of things around sustainability, the World Economic Forum global risk reports, all related back to extreme weather, climate change, pesticide usage, you name it. But a lot of times the fingers come pointed back to golf courses in that regard. So we need to be able to have something to actually say against that. There's the loss of biodiversity, fresh water. These are all important things to show that a golf course is actually enhancing the local environment. It's not polluting the waterways. It's actually creating a great habitat for wildlife in your local area. You know, plastics. I know golf courses are doing a lot around reducing plastics, whether it be for the members, putting water stations around the course, people bringing their own reusable bottles. You know, some major issues which need to be tackled, but I think golf courses have some good stories to tell around this. Public expectations, public demands. You know, there's a lot of people who are willing to go and walk in marches and talk about climate action, and you know, golf can be on that hit list, so we need to counter against that. So in general, you know, 81% of consumers, you know, sustainability is important. It can change their buying habits, and sometimes people will pay more for more sustainable products. I think, you know, we've seen that in general. So again, that message to get out to the golfing community as well about sustainability in the golf industry. I talked before about the sustainability goals. This is also tied back in with the Geo OnCourse program. You know, what do people think about golf? You know, I know internally we all think golf's great and does wonderful things, but a lot of people on the outside think differently. So, you know, we see that guy swinging an axe there. People don't like trees being cut down. That's always a challenge, but trees and turf sometimes don't always go together. You know, and we've seen golf courses which have overplanted golf course. You know, you've had committees which, you know, like to plant memorial trees, and next thing you know, you've got trees overgrown throughout the golf course. So, you know, there's a way we get the message across about the thinning out trees and maybe promoting native varieties rather than introduced varieties as well. You know, and then we come to the risks and opportunities for golf. You know, are we valued and supported? You know, what does the sport do to enhance their environment, to get that message out there? You know, then we've got the other side where people look at golf as being a luxury sport, taking up a lot of land. Again, we've got to get the message out there about, you know, how that's actually creating habitats and for biodiversity, you know, in highly populated areas. I mean, it's interesting when you look at, you know, whether you're looking at a major city like Sydney or Melbourne, Adelaide, for example, and you look on Google Earth and you look at those patches of green in amongst the suburban housing tracts. It's you know, it's unbelievable to actually have those little gems hidden there in the suburbs. So again, just some of the other things, you know, there is the increased pressure on land use. But I can tell you now, someone with their backyard leading onto Royal Melbourne's pretty happy that Royal Melbourne's sitting there right now. As for many other golf courses throughout the cities. So, well, this is not the conclusion of that part. We'll move into just onto the Geo a little bit more, but it is an important time. You know, social media, I was talking with Mark just before about someone can take a photograph and it can be taken totally out of context, spread around, you know, so we have to work extra hard to get the message out about how sustainable golf is. But to do that, we do need to have real outcomes from that to show people what we're doing. So now I'll just talk a bit about the how with sustainability. Look, there's a lot of myth, there's a lot of jargons around what sustainability, around also even around the OnCourse, what the program is. Again, people have tried it, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. I was lucky enough to have a positive experience when I went through the program previously, but there are a lot of streamlining being done, which I believe has actually made the OnCourse program very user-friendly and actually relevant on a day-to-day basis on your golf course. So it all starts with you've got the sustainability platform. You know, nowadays, could have gone back a few years and sometimes you didn't have internet connected at all the facilities. I'd say most would have internet connection or at least a decent 4G connection on your phone now to have access So with the OnCourse program, you can use it on a laptop, your mobile phone, tablet. A lot of ways you can use the program, but also access information. You could be out talking to a golfer and just be able to actually access some of the things you're doing on your dashboard to show a skeptical golfer. And sometimes a picture can actually be 1,000 words. So, you know, a lot of information there. So starting off, central navigation point. Obviously, you'll be looking at a lot of information that you already have to plug in initially, but actually plugging in some of that information, you'll be able to actually already be a long way towards actually having some pretty solid outcomes, and even towards sustainability, towards certification as well. So you can have access users from multiple people at your club who can be signed in, who can update the system. There could be certain areas that they're working on around the course or around the club that they can actually fill in that information, so you don't have to do it all yourself. And a big part of it is it's self-assessment of what you're doing. Could be around habitats, biodiversity, turf grass, pollution prevention, some of the things that you're doing on there. So again, pulling back to these fostering nature, conserving resources, strengthening the community. So that there's the 3 themes that are tied into the OnCourse program with the 9 action areas. So 3 action areas under each of those headings. But it makes sense when you actually just read through that and you see what's available. I mean, you can just go onto the Geo website. There's a lot of information there. I know Mark has a lot of information on this program as well. But a lot of good information can be there. So, of course, to get the good information out, we need to actually put information in. So, you know, it's important to go through and put the data in that you have on your program. It's a depository for documents that you can keep in one place, things that you're doing. And here we just have a look at the screen, for example. So best practices on what you're doing. There's a communication hub that comes out of this, annual data tracking. You've got a pesticide log, water budget tool. You know, I mentioned to Jonathan Smith from the Geo recently as well, and I spoke with Mark about this also. You know, there's a lot of programs out there that there are, you know, people are subscribing to Greenkeeper type programs where you can report information in the cloud. And a lot of these programs aren't cheap, but the OnCourse program actually allows you to do a lot of the similar sort of information with your data tracking, your pesticide logs, that can be used in conjunction with some of the other things you're doing. I know a lot of people use EPAR, which is a fantastic tool as well, you know, along the regulatory type practices, but these OnCourse can go hand in hand. It's not trying to replace some of those things. So just again, with your tracking, your recording, you can come up with an annual report that comes out of that for your past year. All important information that can be shared with whether it's your committee, your board, members, local community. But also too, you can, in the world of social media as well, you can create and share some stories, and you go onto the OnCourse website. There's stories from all over the world about what clubs are doing, and it could be just a snippet on something that you've done or another club have done. But if you have a look on there, you may get an idea for something you can do at your golf course. So there's over 600 snapshots of what people are doing at different golf courses at the moment. And just going on there, I just went through it again the other day just to see some of the interesting things happening around the world of golf, what people are doing. It is quite interesting. I know there's a lot of discussion around bees and in the environment. I know Sentosa Golf Club up here in Singapore are actively promoting bee habitats and what have you, because in Singapore, for those of you who have been here, it's a city state. So any green space we have, it's important to create those habitats for the local flora and fauna. Just some of the things that have been done with the old course, the St Andrews Links, just a irrigation audit on the system. So just some of the things that came out of that accomplished a 25% reduction in water use on the green cycle and a 20% reduction on the fairways. So, having, worked for a time in the commercial irrigation business, I see some of the guys on here from the irrigation side as well. But it's important. I mean, when water is such a limited resource, so just operating efficiently with the irrigation system is so important, and what can be done. And it's probably a rare sight to see sprinklers on the old course at St Andrews, but there are some there. So it's good to see them turned on from time to time. So some of the other tools and resources in the OnCourse program, obviously you've got your communications materials that you can come out with, that pesticide log, water budget, but you can also use that to spread the message on some of the communication reports that you can come up with. Sustainability scorecard. This is very important, especially when you are reporting to your committee or board about your annual summary analysis of your key performance indicators. And the way this information can come out can actually really help you to present, especially when you consider a lot of the people you are presenting to, are from different walks of life or different industries, whether it be the banking industry or what have you, finance industry. They like to see this sort of information presented in this sort of manner, and you're able to generate these sorts of reports from the OnCourse program. You can also, the carbon footprint, there's a lot being talked about that, but the carbon calculator that's available within the OnCourse program as well. And essentially, for example, from your 2019 data, you'd be able to come up with a carbon footprint calculation to see where you are to start with the program, and then you can go from there. So by the end of 2020, you'd be able to compare your carbon footprint from 2019 through 2020 and see where you're tracking. Again, on a day-to-day basis, does this affect how you present your golf course? In a lot of ways, no, but it's a great story to tell if you are seeing a reduction in your carbon footprint. All this information can just help sell your story on what you're doing with your golf course in the local community. And I mentioned before with the infographics that are available for some of these key snapshots that you can get out, whether you want to come up with an infographic that you can send out to the members, put on the notice board, put on social media. There's a lot of great infographic and golfers, people in the local community, a snapshot like that, we don't have to go into great detail, but you can get some really good highlights about what you're doing on your golf course in a very easy way, just to generate a report and a snapshot of what's happening to let people know what you're doing. And again, with that annual sustainability overview, you can generate out of the system. It's a great way to show your professionalism and what you can do on your side of the business. So again, just a few other highlights here about where you can, once you've gathered all that key data, certification then is possible from the program. And if you've got a lot of data in place, it won't actually take long to become certified. I think in the past it did take quite a while and a lot to work through. Now, because of the record keeping, I'd say the majority of golf courses you actually have most of the information to actually put into the program to be very close to becoming Geo Certified. We talk about, why do you want to become Geo Certified? It's recognition, it's for your club, but it's also for yourself as well, to show, and your team, to show that your leaders in your club about the sustainability drive and the good that your golf course is doing for that. It's an international label, recognized. The 10 open venues are all Geo Certified, and that's been an important thing with the RANA to actually show that we're leading the way on that front with the 10 courses on the rotor. And you can see there the graph on the top. Not sure how easy it is to see there, but just some of the things around greens firmness, and to get that consistency with the year to year on the different venues for the Open Championship, but to be in that target range for firmer, faster playing, not necessarily faster playing, but firmer rolling greens for the ground game, which is important, the running game of golf, which is important for the Open Championship. And that's also tied into organic matter control as well. We're working a lot with the courses, with the 10 Open Championship courses around the metrics for performance standards. So it is interesting to see, how those courses have become very consistent in the way the green, the firmness and the greens can play, and also the surrounds. So just talking again about the open venues. Well, obviously it's a pity this year. I mean, we would have been in Royal St George's this week for the Open Championship, not to be with our current COVID situation, as we're all feeling around the world. But scheduled to be played again in 2021 at Royal St George's, and then the 150th Open Championship in 2022 back at St Andrews. So be nice to see a few people over in St Andrews in 2022. Should be a fantastic tournament. So just again, some of the rotor courses there, which are all OnCourse and Geo Certified, and have seen the value in the program. The Geo Certified is an internationally accredited label with ISEAL. So you've got that accreditation that comes with the Geo Certified. There's a marketing toolkit that comes with Geo Certified as well. But also not just for your club, but opportunities for personal recognition, whether it be club management or course manager, because the OnCourse program also works closely with what's happening in the total club environment, especially for energy usage and the way the club operates as a whole. Just some of the people that have been, I guess, sustainability champions to date have been highlighted on the website, whether they be course superintendents, course managers, or facility managers and administrators. So it's working together as a whole. But again, I think it's important to actually raise our profile in what we're doing, not just for the club, but also for yourself individually. So again, some of the things, why join OnCourse? The reasons are there: fostering nature, conserving resources, taking action, strengthening the local communities for a better future, cost saving, positive publicity, more resilient courses, and hopefully more local support in your area for what you're doing with your golf course. So again, you can join OnCourse whether you want to become Geo Certified or not. For some, that's the goal. Others, it's a byproduct. But it's totally up to you whether you want to pursue certification or not. Essentially, once you've got all the information there, certification is not that difficult to obtain. It's basically just having all of the data that you probably already have, but just cataloging that information. So, of course, there's a lot of bodies around the world that are trying to promote golf's credibility that comes with that, with the back in the Olympics as a sport. So again, very, very important to show what the world of golf is doing on the sustainability front. So with the pilot program in Australia now, all this information's on the website to complete the expression of interest form, and I believe a lot of clubs have already done that. And so what those clubs that become involved with, there'll be access to the platform is free of charge. There'll be webinars for the clubs involved to let them know what's happening. Then from that, the course managers involved and the teams involved gathering information for the club, working with Australian Golf Course Association Tech, Geo Staff, Golf Australia. I'll be here to assist as well in the region. So there's a lot of things that can be done through that, I'll just go back to so basically, so what's going to come out of this pilot program will be to tailor the OnCourse dashboard to Australian conditions. So I think there's a lot of value with this program, and just open it up to anybody who has any questions. Let me just stop sharing there.
Okay, well, I might jump in with the first one. If you don't mind, Chris, you mentioned before that there's been some work around the OnCourse program over the course of the last few years to make it a little bit more user-friendly and easier. Can you just give us a high-level version around the first time that you went through the OnCourse program and how easy it is now in terms of the last couple of years and those changes that have been made?
Yeah, the way the OnCourse program operated when I first got onto it about 2010 was it was essentially a point starting from now. You had to start and just move forward from there. I think one of the things that's been changed is you can actually retroactively input previous data into the program that you have. So one of the things was, yeah, it took time to go through and plug in as you move forward, because most clubs would actually have information on their pesticide, fertilizer usage, things they've been doing around the course, water consumption, for example. So to be able to just go back through and work back through your previous data and start to input that, it gave you a bit of a leapfrog rather than starting from scratch and having to input every single thing as you went through it. So that sort of helped create the benchmark, and then the staff that I was working with at the time, we're able to then, I think it got a bit easier as we move forward. But essentially there was, I think it was more time consuming to put the information in. They've streamlined the way data can be input. And I think that's also been with improvements in the internet and cloud storage as well, has made it a lot simpler.
Yeah, great. And appreciate the feedback on that one. So look, if anybody does have any questions, feel free to use the chat function, which is located down the bottom of your screen, to type in any of those questions that you may have. But I will touch on and support something that Chris mentioned a little bit earlier, in the fact that the reason we are involved in the program to look at OnCourse for Australia is that over the last, say 12, 18, maybe 24 months, there's been a lot of conversations back and forth between Gulf Australia, ourselves, and the RANA in relation to environmental management, sustainability, along with EPA from a more local perspective around what it is that we are doing as a sport holistically. And I think what come out of that for me is the fact that we as superintendents, course managers, turf managers are extremely good at sustainable practices, best practices, environmental management, biodiversity. We're very, very good at that. Golf clubs and as a sport, golf are very, very bad at telling our story. So, there's a lot of work that's been undertaken over the last couple of years. And for me, the OnCourse platform is an opportunity to tell those stories, to develop those case studies, to share best practices, and start putting some of the pressure off superintendents. And when I'm particularly thinking about the comments that are made, the questions that are thrown out by members, the general public, the golfing community in relation to land usage, water usage, pesticides, fertilizer usage, all those sorts of things. We've got some really good stories, and I think the OnCourse program is a really good way for us to start sharing those stories at a national level as a sport. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can get some clubs involved in the project to really tailor it for Australia, because there are some things in there that might not be pertinent, might not be relevant. And this is also one of those key pillars that's then going to feed into the broader program, the piece of work around Golf Course 2030 that we are going to lead, and that will be announced late July, early August, the actual project through Golf Australia as well. So appreciate you sharing the time and experience on that, Chris, and also for joining us and sharing the story around Golf Course 2030 as background, and also the OnCourse program and GEO Foundation. We are probably a little bit out of time, but what I will ask is if anybody does have any questions, feel free to email them through to either myself or to Simone, and we'll forward those through to Chris, who can then sort of bounce back those responses and answers in relation to either of those programs and initiatives that he's rolled out today. But Chris, any final comments or any thoughts from yourself before we kind of wrap this up for the day?
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate everyone taking the time to come in on the call. You know, these are pretty challenging times we're facing at the moment, but I'm excited about what's happening in Australia with the Golf Course 2030 initiative, you know, tied in with the OnCourse Australia program, because it does have a lot of value to you personally, to your golf facility, and I believe, you know, you're on the right track with what you're doing, and I look forward to actually hopefully getting down to Australia as soon as we're all allowed to fly again and dropping in and seeing some people.
Yeah, and we certainly look forward to having you down here whenever that travel restriction is lifted. I think Victoria may be the last, the way that we're heading. Yeah, that's right. I know my mum still lives down in East Gippsland, and yeah, I know my kids are pretty keen to get back down the farm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are based here keen to get out. Just get out. So look, thank you again, Chris. Greatly appreciate the time and getting up and joining us early. It's early over Singapore way, so appreciate it. For those who are on the call, if there are any questions or anything that you would like some further information on, please jump onto our website. If you are interested in having a look at putting your hand up to be involved in the OnCourse development projects, the information is available on our website. Or email us through those queries for Chris, and we'll make sure that we get them through to him. But again, on behalf of the association, Chris, and all of our members, thank you for your time today and sharing. Greatly appreciated. No, thank you. I appreciate everyone coming on and taking the time. Have a good week. Yeah, likewise. And thank you everybody for the time and joining. And that's it for today's session.